welcome to today's rally show with me, Bob Irvin. Firstly, I'd like to start with an apology, as I've not put a video out for a few weeks now, so sorry about that. I'd like to start by thanking my usual advertiser, 5-Star Vehicle Delivery. Without these guys backing me, I wouldn't be able to bring you this content. So if ever you're needing vehicles delivered anywhere, shifted anywhere in the UK, please support these guys. Today I'm off to see a man that I've known for a few years now, and he is called Graeme Sherry. Graeme competes, but he's also for the last while been building up a kind of unique collection of rally cars, some of them with really good history. So it's a beautiful day here, so let's go look at some beautiful rally cars. So we're here, folks. Now I'm just wondering how many of you old timers will recognise this registration plate. If I pull back, you'll get more of a clue. And as you can see, it's Russell Brookes' Chevette HSR, and this car is a real McCoy. This is a car that won the 1983 Circuit of Ireland Rally. Let's have a little look around it. I do believe Russell was out in this car in 2016, but we'll find out more when we speak to Graeme about the car. So this is the view that Mike Broad would have had all those years ago. I remember Russell Brookes described this car as the most chuckable, even more chuckable than an Escort. Best handling car he'd ever had. And the other car we're looking at, well, it doesn't take Agatha Christie to work out that this is a Ford Motor Company car. So what have we got? We've got the ex-Colin McRae Ford Focus. A real thing of beauty. Look at the amount of cage in there. This will be Mr. McRae's view. I'm standing here with Graeme Sherry today. Very impressive, mate.
Thank you.
Tell me about the history. We've obviously seen it's Colin McRae's car, ex-car, but
That's right. This is X4 FMC. This was Colin's 2001 Portugal car. Didn't finish in Portugal. He blew the engine up, and then the car went back to Escort. It was rebuilt as they were after every event, and it then became Delacour's car. It was used by Delacour for 3 or 4 events that season, and he ended up having a big accident in Australia in 2001.
okay.
And the car was then brought back to the UK. It was stripped and rebuilt again, because the work that went into these shells was amazing. It was like your old Group 4 stuff that we got over there. It was thousands of hours really. So the car was rebuilt and then come back out the following year with Marco Martin. And Marco Martin used the car in the Safari that year in 2002, and it was given 2002 electronics because they had got new electronics which was much more efficient and much better. And then after that it went to Francois Duval, and Duval was really its last works rally, which was 2002 in Finland, and Duval used it there. It was then retired from the works team and went out to Eastern Europe, and it was used out in Eastern Europe. Then it came back to the UK, and it was used in the UK, and then finally retired about 2009, 2010 was its kind of last events. I went to buy another Ford Focus, and I missed out on it. There's a chap called Tom Wywood, got it just in front of me. The chap that was selling that car, Paul said, Graeme, I've got a Colin car, but I want to restore it first. He says, if you're still wanting a Focus, I've got one. You need to wait a while, a couple of years. So 2 years passed, and I pestered Paul and went down and I bought this from Paul, and ever since then it's been here for 3 years now almost. So I've had it out on kind of track days and shows and stuff like that. I had it down at Chelsea Walsh last year to do classic nostalgia. I had it at Blenheim Palace, so it's a real nice car, very, very well done. Paul restored it with a view to keeping it for himself, so it was done in meticulous. Everything Paul does is meticulous, to be fair. He's a gentleman.
So you always had a desire to own classics, you know what I mean, when you get older, I mean?
Not really, no. I always had a desire to go rallying, and then when the first Focus I wanted to buy was for me to rally. It was not a famous car, and I thought, let's go and have a WRC car and have a wee show of it. But when that fell through and we ended up with this is too nice to rally.
Absolutely.
The wings in this car are actually metal. These are handmade. Most of the rally cars are with the fiberglass wings, because you can't get these anymore. They're unobtainium. But it all started. I tried originally to buy an ex-Jimmy McRae Chevette HS, and the deal fell through. And then this car came up for sale, and I thought, I was never really a big Ford man. I was always a Vauxhall Opel man. I loved the Skodas and Mantras and the Chevettes. And I think my earliest memories of rallying in the kind of late 70s was Jimmy and the Chevette in the Circuit Island and stuff like that. And so the Chevette HSR is one that really I've always wanted, and I couldn't get a Jimmy one. Next best thing was the Brookes one, and I think that, to be fair, that the iconic colours of the Andrews cars are just amazing.
It's quite ironic. It's quite ironic that you were such a big Jimmy McRae fan and you end up with his biggest competitions.
Absolutely. And it was funny because we got to know Russell quite well latterly, just before he passed away. We were out in Rally Legends with that car in 2016, and Russell got a phone call from a lad in Ireland, John Leahy, and John said to me, would you be prepared to let Russell drive the car in San Marino? So it wasn't a problem. My navigator, Pete Wheel at the time, Pete went out and sat beside Russell, which would have been Russell's last ever kind of competitive event, and we got to know him. We'd met him over in Ireland when we did Circuit Deja Vu in the car, and chatted away, and he said he loved the Chevette. He said it was his favourite car of all time. So when he contacted us about going to San Marino, he said he knows it's pretty much going to be his last event, and he really wanted it to be in the Chevette. So he drove the car for a couple of days over there, and it was great. It was great to meet him and chat with him, and we were quite open with him about how.
How did you find Russell? I mean, I mean, you're like me, we grew up, didn't we?
Absolutely.
Despising them and all that. Robbie, Jimmy, eh?
You know something, we get chatting away with him and it was brilliant. We said to him, your attitude, we love Jimmy, Jimmy was our hero and all that kind of stuff, and he just laughed. And we then get into really good conversations about how the two of them were trying to get sponsorship. They were never really full works drivers.
No.
He had a problem. The reason Russell ended up in a Chevette, would you believe, is because he had a Quattro.
That's right.
So he had a Quattro organised. He'd
That's
been out to the Audi factory on 2 occasions to get fitted for the Quattro, everything done. And then at the last minute, Rothmans come in and they wanted 2 cars.
Mm-hmm.
So Audi didn't have the time to build 2,
Aye.
so they cancelled Russell's.
And he went
gave
back
it
to the
Rothmans.
Sunbeam, didn't he, for that season?
No, he went back. He went to the Chevette. He used KFL 305W because it was a ex-Tory Pond car, which was sitting waiting.
I was certain that he went to the Sunbeam.
No, he went
it was
to
the Sunbeam
it
year.
was the Chevette.
Right.
So he used KFL because XEG hadn't been built.
Right, okay.
And so but the deal was to give him a new car. So XEG was built for him.
Okay.
And on its very first rally, on the way out to the rally, it wasn't finished. So they were over in Innsbruck.
Oh,
So they were
right.
getting the ferry over, and they asked permission from the captain for the mechanics to work on it in the hold with the ship.
Really?
So they could finish it in time, and it was actually finished on its way to the, you know these stories of guys going to Mull,
Oh, yeah,
hanging
aye.
off the trailer, and well, that was the works team doing that.
So that would have been 82. That was the same year that he did the 1,000 Lakes in that.
That's crazy. 1,000 Lakes in that car. It was 6 more. It was the highest ever finished of a non-Scandinavian driver at the time.
And I believe he towed a caravan, didn't he, around the route?
Vauxhall and Opel were having heated discussions at that time because they wanted to cease the Chevette because they now had the Escort, and so Opel refused to release money for the event. So managed to get additional money from Pace Petroleum and one or two more companies. So the cars had a very different colour scheme for that rally.
Lighter, kind of
It was
lighter.
actually white down
Yeah.
the bonnet and stuff with Pace
Yep.
on it. It still had some Andrews sponsorship. John Andrews was opening depots in Europe, so he was saying, no, I want my car in Europe.
Aye.
But Opel didn't want it there. So they ended up, Vauxhall couldn't be seen to be giving him too much support. So they organised his accommodation and recce car, and he went down to Luton, and his accommodation was a caravan, and his recce car was a Cavalier. So he and his navigator on that event was not Mike Broad. I can't remember the chap's
Was
name.
it Virtanen? No, was it Owen Nicholas?
It was, it was, I think it was one of the Irish lads, Ronan Morgan.
All right.
I think it was maybe Ronan Morgan that sat beside him on that event. And they literally they unhooked the caravan, did recce'd a couple of stages, hooked back up, and that's how they did the recce. So works driver lifestyle 1982.
Oh, absolutely. Now, if that was 1982, I'd imagine it would have to get homologated into Group B. Was that the rear axle that they changed on
That's
that?
correct. So the car was then homologated into Group B. So it got a ZF box,
Uh-huh.
it got a ZF box and an Atlas axle put on it.
That was right.
So instead of running the Getrag box and the Salisbury axle, it runs with an Atlas and the ZF.
Okay. What have you actually done with the car apart from the Legends? Nothing.
No, we've done rally day. It's been down to rally day a couple of times. It's done a couple of stages. The RAC or the Wales Rally GB down at
Right,
Chorley
right.
Park, and it's done Rally Legends. It's done these kind of events. That's all it will be used for now. The car is all original shell. Interior's pretty much original.
That's incredible.
You know, Russell's actual words when he seen it was the only thing missing is Mike Broad's fags for the map pocket.
Right,
So it's
okay.
a step back in time. The car left Blydenstein in 83, 84 and went to Cyril Bolton.
All right. Press
And
part.
Cyril painted it red and it ran as like the press parts car. Well, Cyril was waiting on a Manta
That's
at
right,
the time. So he was the Manta. I don't know. I heard the story I heard was the Manta was delayed, so they gave him the Chevette to use, and then the Chevette was then sold to a guy called Franco Bovey in Ireland, and Franco did 2 or 3 events in it, and then Franco Mani in Ireland
right,
bought
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So Franco Mani bought it, and then Frank in '89. First event in '89, he had a head gasket problem. He dropped a valve and basically buggered the engine, so he parked it up, and that was it.
That was
so
it.
the car was put in a garage in 1989, and sat there ever since. And
So-
I got the car in 2016.
So you're talking about Ireland, and I believe this car won the
It won the
83 circuit
83 circuit of Ireland. It was actually second in the British Championship that year to Stig Blomqvist.
in the Quattro Eye.
And the Quattro, and there was again Vauxhall Opel interpolitics there because in the Manx, Russell was behind Toivonen, and Toivonen
Yep.
was in the Ascona, and Vauxhall asked Toivonen to slow down and let them pass.
That was a Manta,
was it? So they then asked him to slow down and let Russell past, because Russell would have got more points
for the championship.
And would have won the championship if they'd done that, but they wouldn't do it.
I know.
Because they didn't want the old Chevette
to beat the new model.
modern car. So they wouldn't. So Blomqvist won the British Championship by I think only a point or two.
Wow.
And or Russell would have won it in the Chevette.
That's incredible, because he was up against Jimmy that year in the Rothmans Martin, the new model.
Yep.
You know.
Well, he won the circuit. I think he was third in the Welsh. He was, it was some real good results, and the car was ultra reliable. It was so, and Russell told me that it was his favourite car. When we went to Rally Legends in 2016, Russell phoned me and he said, I really want to do it in the Chevette because it was probably my last event, and it turned out that it was, and that was because it was that was the car he loved the most, he said.
I mean, I've read Russell's actually quoted that it was more truckable than an Escort. It was handled better than an Escort, which is some statement. It's quite bold statement.
They made that is a very long wheelbase car. So if you look at it, the way that it's designed, it was the very last works car built, and they had really extended the wheelbase on it. The early HSs were very nervous because they were such a short wheelbase. So over time they made them longer and longer, and that was the longest one that was ever built. And then when you look at it, the way that we've got another Chevette HSR here, so when you look at it compared to that car, the difference in the whole wheelbase and everything's totally different from the works cars.
So, which one's your favourite? In fact, here's a discounting money. Money doesn't come into it.
Yep.
There's a fire. Which one do you save?
I'd save the Focus.
Really?
Yeah, I love the. I think because it's a Colin car, and I think I just think the Mark 1 Focus was a really nice car. I did a lot of road rallying, and I road rallied a Mark 1 Focus, my wife's Mark 1 Focus, in fact, and I just thought it was such a nice car to drive. Whether if that was a Jimmy car, I would want that car more. I don't know, but I think just the whole Colin thing, I think the whole story behind Ford coming back into rallying and everything at that time with the Mark 1 Focus.
Yeah, the publicity, everything was out there. It was a big
I think it's just the Valvoline sponsorship, the movie star stuff. The Martini colours, iconic with rallying. Again, I just think it's a stunning looking car. Yeah, and you go underneath it, and it's such a nice restoration. You go in and the titanium parts and all that stuff on the car, stunning.
So what was your plans for the future for these? Are you be doing shows? I know you're going to be doing something now.
Yeah, this car is going down to a show at the end of July down in the south coast of England. They've specifically asked for the Brookes car because, again, Russell unfortunately passed away just as COVID was hitting, and for all he achieved, there's not really been, I think anyway, a kind of great celebration of it.
Right.
So it's called Firle Beacon, which is an old hill climb track that they're going to re-establish. And the chap that owns the track is asked that we get some nice rally cars down there and have a big show. He's going to have supercars and all that kind of stuff. So they've asked that they get the Chevette. So the Chevette's going down there. The Focus is probably going to be out at Chelsea Walsh again this year. So we're just waiting on confirmation of everything for that. So I do use the cars at Chelsea Walsh. It's a timed run. We don't hold back.
This will get a lot of attention, eh?
It gets a lot of attention, this car. Yeah. There's not that many of them about, and again, as they fall into the hands of collectors, there's a lot of the collectors are competitors. So what happens is they just go into collections and stay there, and they don't come out and get used.
I can understand that as well, to be honest with you.
100%. I mean, it's quite scary now what the value increase in these cars. These cars have gone up crazily in the last 2 years value-wise, and there's that thought in the back of your head, I can't get wings. Wings are not available. So even just glancing a barrier at Chelsea Walsh, could end up. But it is what it is. I think the cars, we've got a younger generation coming through, and people interested in the sport. And for the older guys that come out, guys my age, etc., to see the iconic cars that they grew up with is great, I think.
Right, we've seen these. We'll go around and look at your other.
Absolutely.
Graeme, I'm thinking there's a bit of a story here. What's happened?
This was Jim Clark last weekend. We were Scottish in the Reivers Rally on the Sunday. We did a bit of an incident on the Saturday. We had a big jump over one of the main bridges, which was caught live stream, which was quite good fun. And then we did similar on the next jump, and the diff didn't take it, so the diff blew up on the first stage on the Saturday. So I ran away up to Edinburgh, managed to get all the parts that we needed, rebuilt the diff, and then came out again on the Sunday for the Reivers. And on the very last stage of the Reivers, on probably the second last significant corner, we put it into a telegraph pole. And to be fair, kept going, didn't even realise how badly damaged it was, thought it was just a quick glance, thought I'd maybe pulled the back bumper off it. And Ewan got out at the end of the stage to take the helmets, walked round the back, said, "You maybe want to come and see this?" And it's in some mess. So plans are to have it ready for the Argyle Rally.
How many weeks is that?
4 weeks to do that.
Okay.
So
I'm guessing it's a problem sourcing parts for these gear.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Vauxhall Opals, and not so much a Ford, but I now know why everybody runs an Escort. Because if you want an Escort panel, there's 10 companies will sell you. If you want an Opal panel, you just can't get them. They're just not there, not available.
So do you think you're going to make the target?
I don't know. Big decisions in the next 2 or 3 days, to be honest, as to where we're going to end up with it. We've managed to source most of the parts now. I didn't see any point in trying to get it repaired until we had the parts. So we've got most of the parts now, and I'm just going to make a couple of calls start of this week to see who can carry out the repairs in that time scale. And we'll go from there. I just realised it's a lot fucking worse than that.
Graeme, there's no many of these about. Tell me the story about this.
Well, this is a Group A Escort Cosworth, probably a very famous Group A Escort Cosworth. It was really the first works car built by Borum. It did the Monte Carlo 93 where it was second, and it did Portugal 93 and it won Portugal 93.
With who driving?
It was Francois Delacour. It was a Delacour car. After that, it was then sold off to Mike Taylor. And Mike Taylor used the car as a hire car, and it was mainly used in Eastern Europe.
Okay.
Driven by Kurt Rotlicker and
Hollowitz.
Yep, drove the car. So it several drivers in throughout the kind of mid-90s up until 98, and it was crashed in 98, and then it was rebuilt by Mike. And then it was I got the car via Mike, found the car, Mike knew where the car was, and managed to get the car. Unfortunately in the state that it's in, but it's an old rally car, it's been lying about for a while. It came with its Mount Tune engine, which is still there, and that engine was actually refreshed, so it's only done a couple of 100 kilometres on that engine. So, and it also still has the FFD 7-speed gearbox, which was the works gearbox. And all the original, because the car's been parked up for so long, it's got all the original Pectel electronics, everything like that. Even in the boot, you've got the original fuel tanks and the water tanks and everything that are all carbon, that were all the work stuff. And I even managed to get, you can just see down here is the tarmac, water-cooled tarmac brakes came with the car as well.
Superb.
So it needs a lot of work, this car.
It needs a lot of work, but what's your aim?
We're going to restore it back to its kind of 93 Portugal spec.
Would that be the Ford colours? You're going to get the whole shebang,
Put it back to the Ford colours. It won Portugal 93, which was the first WRC victory for the Escort Cosworth, and was also Delacour's first WRC victory.
Is that right?
So the plan is to take it back, because obviously that's probably its most iconic colour scheme, what this car was most famous for. So Ford have a replica of this car in their heritage collection.
Right.
So they've got the replica, but this is the original car.
Superb.
So
how long is this going to take you?
there'll be at least 2 years in the restoration of this car. The parts are expensive for the car. The engine is fine. We know the engine's good. It's not stored in here. It's stored elsewhere in much drier, better conditions. The gearbox will need to go. There's a chap called Barra Singh Barra Motorsport. Big Barry Lockhead. I spoke to Barry because Barry worked for Mike Little when these cars were in the day, and it was, you know, although Barry's excellent with the gearboxes and he's a gentleman, Barry had said, look, Barra is the only guy to rebuild that box. So this car's also got the big diffs and stuff on it, so everything will probably go into Barra as a package. And then once we get that back, that's basically engine transmission done, and then the works on the shell. The shell's not the worst, but getting panels for these cars is very difficult. I mean, even back in the day, the wings were hard to get. So I've managed to get a pair of, and they were metal, and the WRC cars ran Kevlar, and you can replicate that with fiberglass, but the Group A cars were metal. So I've managed to get a pair of wings, and we'll just slowly but surely work our way through this car. But I want it nice, so there's at least 2 years work on this.
Absolutely.
And we've also got the 6R4, which is not here just now.
Tell me about that.
So the 6R4, the car I've got's got the 3 litre international spec engine in it. It was Ray Mackay's car that won the 2007 Snowman.
Aye. That red one, was it red?
The red one,
aye.
Yep, red one. And what happened with that car was brand new, it went out to the Middle East. It was used in the Middle East for a couple of years. It then came back and went out to Iceland.
Okay.
And the car won 6 Icelandic championships.
Really?
And it was the Shell Oils car out in Iceland. Yep. And then Ray got his hands on it, and I had been speaking to Ray and Andy Horner about trying to find a 6R4, and Ray said that he'd sold the car but he knew where it was, and it was in Wales, and so I went down to Wales and I brought the car back to Scotland. So that's another project, that's another...
And where is that just now?
It's away getting the shell blasted and stuff like that. We'll see what comes back.
Have you got some sort of time scale on that?
Again, it's going to be a couple of years, that car. You know, because that car's probably going to go elsewhere to get done. The Escort will be done here. DTP, David Tate will do the Escort. David's known Cosworth all his days, so David will do the restoration on the Cosworth. Okay. And the 6R4 will go elsewhere. The 6R4 is, to me, you know, it's iconic. We've ended up with a collection here, really, which is quite amusing. It never ever was meant to be this way, but we've got a Group 4 car, which is the HSR. We've got a Group B car, which is the 6R4. We've got a Group A car and a WRC car, and it was never meant to be that way. And I mean, I wanted a legacy, and I couldn't get a nice, proper Group A legacy. So we came across this car, and it's probably more work than I'd intended because we had the 6R4 to do, but when I got it, I thought, you know, with the history of this car, I thought we've got to keep it, we've got to get this. So we got this one, and as I say, this will be, we're obviously we're trying to fit it in with the rallying that we do, and as you see, there's quite extensive work to get done at the Manta. So
you're busy, eh?
It's busy, so this will get done in between times. I'm saying 2 years, but depending on what happens with the road and rallying, you know, if we get accidents or incidents, then that's the priority. And then David comes off of working on this and goes on to working on the cars that we're actually rallying.
So we just popped inside for a cup of tea here and chatting about your cranking and stuff. So you've been into the rally since the 80s, the mid-80s?
Absolutely.
How did you get into it?
When I was a young kid at school, my mate's dad took us to our first rally. He was friendly with a chap called Gordon Hasty, who navigated in the Scottish Championship latterly with Alistair Brearley in the Metro, Sprintex Metro.
Yeah, I remember that well.
And when that car was actually being built, it was built and we went along to, because it was Fleming's Thermodynamics, it was the Sprintex superchargers they were making, and we got photographs of the car getting built and stuff like that from Gordon. It was amazing. And then my mate Craig's dad took us along to our first rallies, and they were like De Villa, Blair Adam, local rallies to where we were from, and we were just hooked, absolutely hooked. And then it was World of Sport on a Saturday morning, watching, you know, Dickie Davis and the interviews, and at that time rallying was
bursting everywhere. It was great. And then as soon as we got to 17 and one of us, Craig again, could drive, we'd hijack his mum's car and we would go away and go rallying, follow the rallying. It was brilliant. And then in the village, the Alloa and District Car Club were the local car club, and a couple of boys were out doing road rallying. So they did the road rallies, and Craig did his first road rally in his mum's Metro with a guy called Gustow navigating for him. And Craig said to me, "No, you get into road rallying." You know, we didn't have any money, but you know, we thought, right. So I had a wee Volkswagen Polo hatchback and bought us a cheap set of spotlights, and away we went. We did the West of Scotland Navigational Championship, and we just absolutely loved it. We couldn't believe that we were rally drivers. It was just amazing. Couldn't afford to do stage rallying. There was no way that we could afford it at that time. So, as I say, we ended up doing the road rallying, and we did it for 2 or 3 years. Absolutely loved it. And then eventually, there was a lad in the village had bought a Mark II Escort from a chap in Inverness called Tommy McRae. Tommy's still about rallying now, and I bought that as a rolling shell, and I put a 1.6 Pinto in it, standard. And we went away and did a couple of rallies. We did a couple of tarmac Ingolson and stuff like that back in the day. And early 90s now. And then I always remember I did the Trossachs, and it would be about 93, and honestly we were on third-hand tyres. And
so you were driving on the Trossachs?
I was driving.
So was that like your first?
That was my first forest event, and it was honestly, you know, to pinch myself, I couldn't believe I was actually doing a rally, a forest rally.
Where did that start? Was that Stirling?
It started in Aberfoyle at that time, and we went out. You did, I mean, at that time you wore a jumper and a t-shirt, you know, and a pair of jeans tucked into your socks, and
your Adidas Sambas.
Exactly, Sambas, and it was just amazing to get out there and do a rally, and I absolutely loved it.
Did you finish?
We did finish, and again, Stuart Irvin that drives the Hyundais now. Stuart and I think it was probably Stuart's first forest rally as well, and I think we were right next to each other. He had a Cadet GT at the time, and I had the Escort. It was a genuine Mexico. So and Stuart and I still talk about that our first ever rally. We're still out rallying all these years later. But rallying was too expensive for me, so I bought a wee kit car, a wee silver kit car. And started doing sprints and hill climbs. And I was lucky in the early 90s. We won the class a couple of times, and we won the sprint championship of the class and sprint championship overall. And then 98, I started my own haulage company. I had to give up motorsport altogether. I went out and did some marshalling and road rallies and bits and pieces. Still kept in with the sport, and then mid-2000s, I had a Mark 1 Fiesta, and I went back sprinting again with the Mark 1 Fiesta.
Wasn't it a super sport, was it?
It wasn't a super sport, but it was an XR2. It was a Mark 1 XR2, and it was good fun. But again, I wanted to go rallying, and I thought, right, I'm going to consciously to think about that. And then I bought a 1900 205, went back to road rallying, met up with Pete Whale at the time, and Pete and I were out doing road rallies again, and absolutely loved it. Then moved into my wife's Mark 1 Focus and started using that. And then I thought, no, we're going to go back rallying. I bought a 205 1.6, but that time Digby had started the 205 Challenge.
Yep.
So started off, bought a 205 down in Wales, which had been accident damaged, but it had a cage and everything in it. Repaired it, and we did the Scottish Tarmac Championship first year. And first year back, we finished second overall in the class in that championship, which I think would have been 2007, and then really from then on I've just done we stuck with the 205 challenge, which was just brilliant. It was a great bunch of guys, everybody was similar in pace and everybody had a great time, very level playing field. But 205s just get too expensive, you couldn't get them.
I was actually going to ask you, why did such a successful championship, which launched many a career, why did it disappear?
I think it disappeared because people were moving on, and the 205s were pretty slow. I mean, we had 110 brake horsepower, and when there was a bunch of guys doing it, and you had maybe 8 to 10 of you all doing the championship, it was great fun because you were swapping seconds here and there, and it was good banter. I mean, see if you had a problem and you didn't have a part, there'd be another guy that had a part, and there was none of this. Don't tell them, everybody shared parts. It was great. I think the problem we have is trying to replicate that. A few years ago we did the British Championship in the Clio, and the idea was that you would buy a 182 Clio and it would be totally standard. You were allowed to change the crown wheel and pinion and put an LSD in it and change the suspension, but that was literally it. Cage it, and that was it. And they ended up, there was 5 registered crews, but we ended up really being the only crew that were going out regularly doing the events.
Why?
I don't know why that was, because it was, I mean, that car cost us about £5,000 to build. It was not, and we bought an accident damaged car, and it was a rally car that had been rolled, and we repaired it, and we bought a crown wheel and pinion from Renault Sport Poland or somewhere like that, and built the car up, and it was excellent, loved it. I mean, we were lying 13th overall in that car at Knock Hill, and the gearbox went. We were over Isle of Man, we did Ulster in it. Unfortunately it was cancelled because one of the young lads got killed. But for me, it was a matter of going out and doing events that as a child, as a kid, Isle of Man, my goodness, I was sitting in Isle of Man and I couldn't believe I was sitting there. I've got young Ewan Lee's navigating for me, current Scottish Group N champion,
All right, I thought that.
So he's navigating for me now, and Ewan's, he goes on about, when we did Mull, that was his iconic thing. We did Mull last year, loved it, couldn't believe he was sitting on the start line of Mull. Jim Clark last weekend, again, big iconic event for him. And I'm saying, but what about Ulster? What about, the Isle of Man? But that, I think that shows the way that rallying, because there's no TV exposure. Ewan's has been exposed to rallying since very young, and he's not seen these big events really as big events. He's looking at more local events because there were events that he went to, because I don't think the TV coverage is there. Whereas you and I, well, we watched all the sport, we've seen the Ulster, the Circuit Ireland.
I went, certainly.
And we went over, but I for a couple of years there, we decided that I wasn't going to do any championships. I was kind of going to pick and choose events or places I'd always wanted to go. So we ended up in Belgium. We did Rally Vervic in Belgium. Great fun, loved it. Rally Morzine in the French Alps. Again, great event. Unfortunately, we didn't get very far because we crashed. But it was just picking and choosing events and going to different places and seeing what goes on. I mean, in France, the crowds were unbelievable. Scrutineering was in the main street. The crowds were amazing. People trying to help you as best they could. Ireland's the same. Belgium's very busy.
Can you learn for this?
Well, I think we can. I think we've got to. I mean, the Jim Clark this year was great. Friday night at the town centre was mobbed with people, and a lot of the stages were busy, which was good to see. But it would be good to try and get city centre venues for a stage. The Argyll, for example, is using Dunoon Town Centre. It's excellent. The crowds last year in Argyll were great in the town centre. These people are not going to traipse into a forest or even to the middle of nowhere to see a tarmac stage walking across fields. But you bring the rally to them in the city centre and everybody's loving it. I mean, the Argyll last year, the entry was fantastic. Accommodation was hard to get. Everywhere was booked up. So it's great for these towns. West coast of Scotland isn't as busy as it used to be. So Dunoon was just fantastic. It was buzzing, the pubs were busy, the restaurants were busy. It's just such great income. I mean, I think people tell me that Mull brings millions, the rally brings millions to the island every year.
That's just a drink.
Well, is that?
You mentioned television. Can you see us ever getting back to that kind of BBC One half an hour report? I mean, is it gone? But
I think that, again, we need to think about the way television is now. Is BBC One the channel you should be on? I think if there's YouTube channels there and the whole social media thing, there's channels there live streaming on Facebook and stuff, that we just need to get the word out there that it's there and people can pick up on it. And I think once people pick up, if we start getting thousands of views on these things, then the TV companies will start looking and say, wait a minute, if that's how many people are looking at it, then we should have that on the mainstream television. And I think that's the only way we'll get it there. We're not going to get it there with a big sponsor, we're not going to get it there with any other manufacturer, we're only going to get it there by footfall. If people watch it, we'll get it there. And I think try to push it so that everybody knows when the live stream's on. The live stream can be funny because you're sitting and it's a minute between each car, and even highlights programmes and stuff like that. I mean, Special Stage did a kind of highlights video of the Clark, which was good. star drivers the first time on it, you know. So we did a big jump on the Saturday.
Oh yeah, Louise commented, that's right.
So, and partly an incredible piece of driving. But,
absolutely incredible.
I don't know who it was from, because it wasn't me, because I was just hanging on the steering.
I'm just surprised you got round it, I must say that.
That's it.
But you mentioned, you touched upon the 1 week championships, Graeme.
Yep.
What car could possibly be used now? There's a guy in the Borders trying to push the MG3.
Yes, I think the MG3, I've not, you know something, I really should go and have a right good look at that car. I think it's a great idea because the cars are cheap enough, the parts are available. I think the issue is you've got to change the engine to the MG ZR engine. It's not a very powerful wee car, but neither was the 1.6205. I think there is an issue with the Costa Rally in full stop. Whether or not we like it, it's an expensive sport. I think the Subaru Challenge is a really good idea. Again, an entry car, unfortunately, when we were buying 205s, we were building a car for £3,000, £3,500. I think a decent Subaru is going to cost you 10 grand, say, to try and get one that's good enough.
That's relatively cheap.
I think it's relatively cheap.
You know, for what you're
Um,
getting. But do you know, I think it's a great championship as well. I don't think it's promoted very well.
Right, okay.
To be honest,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think, well, obviously I don't think the whole sport's promoted very well.
Yes, absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I think that particular championship could do a bit of lift, you know.
Yeah, I think within that championship, I don't know, sometimes the 205s was very strictly policed and they didn't really let you deviate too much. There was one or two things coming in at the tail end. You were allowed power steering laterally. Young Sarah Hunter came in and her dad, Bunny, had asked if we could get power steering, and it kind of went round everybody, and I think it was finally approved that you were allowed power steering. But I think with the Subaru Challenge, they've allowed remote canister suspension in it and stuff, and I'm thinking, should we allow that? Because again, that's getting into a more expensive thing. The 205s was very well policed, very tightly done, Bilsteins only, and away you went, and I loved it. I think the Subaru is an excellent idea. I think the VMG, the problem you've got with that is having to change engines and stuff like that. But again, I don't know how easy. I mean, the MG engine in my head is always an engine that had head gasket issues. But again, I don't know. I know that you've got Freelander. I think if you fit the Freelander head gaskets and things like that, you can, prolong the life of the head gaskets. But I don't know enough about it, and hats off to Niall Cowan for going out and trying to do it. He's trying to do something.
I think it's terrific.
Absolutely. And it would be good to see even 4 or 5 of them out there, because see, once you get that and you get a core of people that are against each other, I think it's how we get the juniors into senior rallying.
Yeah.
So the Scottish Championship, I've tried it with a kind of 1 metre class, but the cost jump is huge to go from tarmac single venue rallying to go forest rallying, and as I say, unless you get big sponsors or big pockets, it's maybe too much of a jump for many of the juniors.
As somebody that's been competing since the 80s, or late 80s, how have you seen, I mean, we talk about the old days were great and stuff, would you say it's changed a hell of a lot, or is it just a natural kind of...
I think it's a natural progression. I think the world has changed dramatically, so therefore when I was started rallying, you went along your local car club, and the car club would be doing auto tests. I mean, I spoke to you about a chap earlier from the village that I'm from, Alistair Gray, and Alistair had his car out doing auto tests, road rallies, and then he would race at Ingleson, and his wife took the car to work on a Monday. It was a Mark 1 RS 2000. You just couldn't do that now. But see how everybody goes on, you've got to have a sequential gearbox, you've got to have this, you've got to have that. Now, we did the Jim Clark last weekend in an Opel Manta with Bilstein suspension, a 5-speed rocket box, and not a very powerful 2 litre 16 valve Vauxhall engine. We finished third in the class. There was 10, 12 in the class, and it was excellent. We thoroughly enjoyed it. So I think there are definitely you can go out and do it in a much cheaper budget. But everybody seems to think that they need a sequential gearbox, and they need this and they need that. Go out and enjoy yourself. That's what we go out for a laugh. No, Malcolm Olsen's no phoning me next week to say, Graeme, could you come to the M Sport and sign here? Yeah. So we go out for a laugh and a carry on. We don't go out for trophies or whatever. It's to go out, enjoy yourself. If you've done a great stage time in yourself, I've got another mate, Sam Orr. Sam Orr never looks at stage times, no interested, goes out, does his rally, drives to the rally, doesn't have a trailer, does the rally, drives home.
So you're not one of these guys that sits in the service van with 20 minutes to go listening to some freaky music just to get you in the zone. I've seen it. I've seen it at single venues.
No, you and Lise will tell you, I don't even know my stage times.
No.
So I always say, you don't tell me.
So you're not a very competitive person?
I am competitive, because I want to do well.
But if you did tell you the stage time, that'd be dangerous.
Let's, for example, Speyside, we were out in the Speyside, never driven rear wheel driving gravel since 1992 or something, and took the man out, which is the single decker bus on wheels, and went out to do the rally. Got to the halfway halt, and Hugh comes up and says, oh, by the way, we're leading the class. And I went, oh, yeah,
don't tell me.
Don't tell me. So we then goes out the second half of the rally, and we took it a bit easier, because I thought, oh well, because I didn't think that I'd driven too well in the first first 3 or 4 stages. So I thought, well, I'll just ease back. I said, if we're leading the class having driven like that, if we stop putting the broadside at every corner and start to behave ourselves, we should win the class. And we lost the class by 17 seconds, which was annoying. And who's to say, maybe we'd still have lost it, but I'm thinking, but don't tell me where I'm sitting. Jim Clark at the weekend, I did not know one stage time, and as I said, we ended up third in the class, and it was great fun. And we just had a hoot, because, if you know your stage time, to me, I'm going out in every stage trying my hardest. So if somebody said to me, oh, you need to go faster, I shouldn't be able to go faster. As far as I'm concerned, I should go my hardest on every stage that I can. Last year, on the Carlisle stages, we were going to win the Group N Championship, and the last couple of stages was a nightmare, because we were kind of taking it easy, you're not pushing, and I wasn't enjoying it.
Listening for noises.
Exactly. The last stage we thought we'd have a puncture, we got a puncture, oh God, what are we going to do? But to me, you go out, you enjoy yourself, you try and get it to the budget, you don't need every fancy thing that's going, just go out there, build a nice safe car, get your steering, suspension, brakes right, worry about power later on, and just go out and enjoy yourself.
What's your favourite ever memory of it in a competing sense?
Competing sense is the Weldex back in probably about 96, a 1300 Astra. It was just a year where I had a big laddie Magnus navigating for me, and we just went out in the wee 1300 Astra, and the weather was great, the scenery was great, and I just loved it. I loved going down those stages, down not the Raceway Thankful itself, but the actual forests alongside the Raceway Thankful. It was just amazing. Again, having been a kid and get up there, my mate's dad taking us up to watch the rallies, and then actually competing in those rallies. I just thought they were amazing. But even my favourite rally is the Speyside. I think the Speyside is a great event. It's always very well run. The stages are great, and I just love it. I prefer tarmac more than I prefer gravel.
Really?
Yeah, and I think that it's great to see these closed road events. I think we've got to be very careful. Some incidents last week, the Jim Clark spectators causing issues and farmers causing issues, but I think if we police it properly, we could have some excellent closed road rally. Unfortunately in Fife we didn't get their closed road rally this year, and they didn't get the one down in the Solway coast. And I don't know how that's going to go. I don't know how that's going to go for the Scottish Rally Championship. We've secured the Forest contract for another few years.
You certainly don't want the Forest to disappear.
Not at all. But I think it's getting so expensive. The Jim Clark wasn't much cheaper, or any cheaper than a Forest event. Because of the insurance, but
it doesn't do the cars much damage.
It doesn't do the cars much damage.
Unless
you've got a man hitting a telegraph pole. But again, it's not as sore in a car. With the Scottish last year on my Impreza, dear, it was extensive damage underneath. We've got Kevlar guards, and they were just destroyed, and they were not nice stages. And again, organisers are sometimes backed into a corner with availability of stages, so they can only give to the competitor what they
try their best. They don't mean to do it.
100%.
Try their best.
100%.
I see you've got a lot of literature in that rallying. So, who's your favourite ever rally driver?
Favourite ever, Ari Vatanen.
Why?
Ari Vatanen to me, when I grew up as a kid, again, seen him in the Escort, then seen him in the Manta, I just thought he was amazing. I thought nobody could touch him, and I loved the fact that he was very flamboyant, the fact that he would be leading a rally, that he would crash because he just wanted to go harder and faster. Yeah, I loved that, and very similar to Colin. Colin was the same. It was a case of he was pushing himself and not necessarily interested in what those around them were up to.
Aye.
You know, and everybody goes on about, you know, he should have won more championships and this and that and the next thing, but, you know, I think he just went out there and he loved it. But to me, Vatanen, and he's a gentleman. I met him, fortunate to meet him at the McRae stages one year, and he couldn't have been any nicer. The time he has for people, it was great to meet him.
He's a lovely guy, and what gets me about Ari is not just his driving, which is incredible. He's got a great sense of humour for a Finn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for a Finn, he's really witty. You know, if you look at Mark Alain, that's sternness, but Ari's always quite a funny guy. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Graeme. Thank you very much, and I hope you invite me back soon. I hope I get a biscuit the next time.
That's biscuits are there.
Thanks very much.
Cheers, Paul. No bother.
So thanks very much for watching, folks. Hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. It's not every day you get to drive up and see McRae's Ford Focus. So a massive thank you to Graeme for inviting me to see the cars, and a massive thank you to 5-Star Vehicle Delivery. Please like and subscribe to see the videos, and again, thank you for watching. See you next time.